Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Press Club with me, Kendall Burton, and my co-host, Mr. Earl Buske, veteran journalist, wearer of many hats. We review the big stories making news every week, and we discuss issues affecting the local media, well, the media generally. We also review the day's newspapers. We'll start with the Voice newspaper. This weekend, runaway teen, Marigo mother thinks daughter is being abused. That's the only story on the front page. The Mirror newspaper, SLTB, the Signature Tourist Board, set to function under a new entity, tourism strategies and gun violence in the city. That's also the subject of the Voice editorial this weekend. The Star newspaper, Sir John Melvin Compton, gone but not forgotten, and the sacrificial lamb consummated. And of course, we have the regular inserts from the Voice and the Star newspaper, the Yo magazine from the Voice, featuring the Beauty of Rose, a reference to one of the flower festivals here. And the Tonight magazine from the Star, Dollface gives you the soup, promoting a new talk show that's to premiere on Monday, I believe. And the Sports and Health magazine, Football Championship, kicks off. What are the big stories for you this weekend?
None of the above.
Nothing jumps out at you?
Nothing jumps out there. I saw other related stories inside related to our program in terms of that there was this workshop organized by personnel out of the U.S. Embassy to sensitize local journalists on how to cover LGBTI issues. The big story sticking with me, I don't know, maybe because of who we are and what we do, the soup. You know, we've been told to get ready for the soup, doll face, etc., etc. I'm not really taken by the doll face. What I'm really taken by is the fact that four women are going to be starting a show where they promise to be addressing the issues that you and I and others don't address, or maybe are afraid to address, or don't. And I'm looking forward to it because it's not we have what I would call the run-of-the-mill talk shows. They all sound alike, look alike, and this would bring a fresh face, albeit four. I'm looking forward to it. I tend to think that it may be patterned by the one, the US, I'm sure. Yeah,
like the View, and
the View,
the Talk.
yeah, etc. Let's. I would hope that it would be different. It must be different because these are Caribbean people. You know, I will hope they'll be talking about Caribbean society and not just the soap or the soup, you know. But I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it because, like I said, it's probably going to be subject to correction. The first time that you're going to have a show completely handled by women, and given what they promise, I hope it's not just the hype. But I'm certainly looking forward to it. Monday night.
Not on this station.
I didn't say so.
It's competing with the news. I'm wondering how much viewership it will get because most of the TV stations have the news at 7 o'clock.
Well, it doesn't say how long it's going to be. I guess they would have considered that, and maybe they may say, like some tend to say, who wants to see us or going to make time to see us, or maybe they're going to have a replay. I don't know how long it's going to be. 7 o'clock. I suspect that there would be people who would be prepared to maybe risk missing the news at 7 and catching it later. If it's not to their liking, they go right back.
Let's shift our focus to the Star front page. Well, it's actually the center of the Star, the John George Melvin Compton. We observed or commemorated the anniversary of his passing this week. It's a very interesting article, a reprint rather, of an article carried in 2007, September 2007, shortly after he passed. But as I read it this morning, you know, it brought back a lot of memories, a lot of reflection, you know, and it took me back to something that we have touched on a couple times here. You know, how much of our history is being taught in schools? You know, how many of the young people at school, you know about Sir John, his contribution to St. Lucia's development and history? You know, maybe some of the other prime ministers who are mentioned in that article, some of the other political figures like George Odlum and Peter Josey, who is a prolific writer these days, contributing articles to every newspaper that we have in front of us.
Certainly, it's a recurring topic, the lack of history in our history. The fact that history is now off the curriculum in some schools. There are schools where history is not being taught. That was revealed earlier this week. History history is competing with IT. And in a situation where students have choices, the ministry is finding, and not only in St. Lucia, around the region, more students are opting for IT subjects at the expense of history, literature, etc. Having said that, coming to our own history, who was Sir John? Where was he born? How long he was Prime Minister? Why he was so influential as somebody who was not born here? Is he the only politician who was not born in a country because in the Caribbean, Maurice Bishop wasn't born in Grenada. You know, Sir John wasn't born here. The current Prime Minister wasn't born on this island.
St. Charles Stephenson King as well? Wasn't he born in St. Vincent as well?
Well, I'm not too sure, but I'm saying that it's late in life when they do become Prime Minister, and you know the whole question of having to deal with things like dual citizenship and where you're born and so on. That comes up, but at the end of the day, it's not about President of Guyana, Janet Jagan, born in Chicago. You know, you go all around. So to what extent does any one St. Lucian student below the age of 18 know any of these facts? How many of us as journalists know that Rick Wayne was Sir John's first press secretary after independence? You know, the photograph in the Star today will shows that he also accompanied Sir John on foreign trips. There's he with Sir John in Venezuela at a meeting with President Caldera, who was his friend. So that Sir John's role, his contribution, is one which one side of it is well known, that side of it which has been painted and written. And one of the things that Peter Josey, you mentioned earlier, one of the things Peter Josey has made it clear to everyone who will listen is that he's not going to go the way of Sir John and George Odlum, none of whom had taken time off to write anything about their own account of their history. Peter has been spending the last few years, and as you correctly pointed out, his writing machine is in full gear now, because his articles appear in all the newspapers. I looked at the one in the Star today about Rise Up, and there's a photograph of a young man with you know the style now, with the pants all the way down below the underwear. And I looked at it. I didn't get to read the article, but I said, you know, if Peter is going to be complaining about that, you know, about the way in which the young people dress today, then he's got to remember that in the mid-60s, late 60s, in the heyday of the Black Power movement, he looked strange walking around with an afro, a large afro hairstyle, Black Power chain with a Black Power fist, you know, afro shirt. And I clearly remember once, I was still at school, when they were launching the Forum. That's another thing that not many young St. Lucians know about. You know, the Forum having been a radical organization that bred and influenced the course of politics in St. Lucia. And there was Peter at the launching of the Forum. He had his afro shirt, afro hair, his Black Power sign, his his shirt, and he had a little stick, which he said that little stick, he had just come back from Haiti, and that stick was given to him by Papa Doc, and he was warning John Compton and the UWP that the forum is going to straighten things out. But we're due for a break, I guess.
We're due for a break. We'll be right back. You're watching The Press Club. Welcome back to The Press Club. Let's shift our focus to the Mirror headline. SLTV sets to function under new entity tourism strategies. That was covered and carried by the broadcast media as well throughout the week. New statistics and figures, tourism figures out by the Signature Tourist Board. Concern being expressed that there has been some decline registered in some key markets like the UK market. Obviously, that's a fallout from the Brexit, which has seen a decline in the pound sterling. Of course, that has shot the price of everything from a cup of coffee to vacations up. You know, so naturally, people are going to be more conservative. They're going to watch their money. Even traveling within Europe, they're watching their spending. But perhaps the thing that would have stuck out in a lot of people's minds is the Jazz Festival, which the Agnes Francis, one of the board members, has called for a revamp or an overhaul of, and there are suggestions that perhaps the government may want to outsource the organization, the planning and staging of the Jazz Festival to another entity. In the Mirror article, there's one paragraph that refers to the fact that she said that a sum of $34 million was budgeted to the SLTV, the Signature Tourist Board, from which a third of that amount, approximately $10 million, was pumped into the production of the Jazz Festival. That's a lot of money. There are concerns about finances, marketing and operations, and the inability of Tourist Board staff, to focus on their core mandate, which is the marketing of the destination.
Well, if my ears work right, what I'm hearing is that the Jazz Festival has gotten too big to handle, that it is beyond the board's ability to manage as a single entity, and hence the thought of outsourcing it. I would hate to believe that the outsourcing would be considered without considering the fact that 70% of the services for the Jazz Festival is provided by local companies, and that was so because of a deliberate strategy over the years by the Tourist Board under different administrations, successive administrations, to pump money into the Jazz Festival so that it could bring more people to the shores and hopefully more spending. The Jazz Festival, as we've noted, was never meant to make a profit. So if the decision now is that $10 million is too much money to spend on it, on something that doesn't make a profit, is the outsourcing meant to simply pay the $10 million to another entity, or is it going to be a situation where entities here and abroad and everywhere will be able or will be invited to bid to run the Jazz Festival? I would need to know more about why outsource it and to what end. When that comes out, then we can discuss more about the likelihoods, the possibilities of what can or may not happen, the challenges and the opportunities.
But as you pointed out, it was not a tool to generate profit. It was a marketing tool first and foremost, but has it succeeded in pulling the kind of numbers that we would like to see? Even especially from the Caribbean, which is another big market, we've seen declines there as well. From the French islands, which was one of our biggest markets. So now you have stuff like the Mercury Beach and that sort of thing that's pulling.
That's what I was going to say. Mercury Beach ain't suffering.
Yeah, but why has the Jazz Festival, as far as you concern or can see, met its objective?
I think it has met its objective of marketing St. Lucia. I think the factors that affect the figures have, yes, a lot to do with our marketing, but as much to do with global economic conditions, the effect of Brexit in UK, the effects of whatever causes people to choose where to go, the fact that people have wider choices, the fact that every island seems to want to do like St. Lucia and be known for something. We're the honeymoon capital of the Caribbean. Is it that, does that mean we're going to be spending more time building up the honeymoon aspect and lessening the emphasis on jazz, or are we going to assess jazz and say, well, listen, if it hasn't been bringing money, has it been bringing people, and has it been bringing people, like you said, in the numbers that we expect?
Yeah, but so you keep referring to as jazz, but I think the
jazz and arts.
But the jazz element has kind of dwindled over successive years.
I think that's a. I think jazz is a generic term here.
Yeah, but you see, if originally it was a jazz festival, you know, and as a hardcore jazz fan, I'm saying you have a plethora of festivals happening around the world, including in the US, a lot of jazz festivals. You know, so why do I want to take my hard-earned money to come to St. Lucia? What is unique about St. Lucia's jazz festival as opposed to what happens in Louisiana, for instance?
Well, one would hope that that sort of thinking, that sort of investigation, that sort of research would have gone into the decision, would have preceded the decision.
And I imagine that is why the arts component was tagged on. You know, but how much further now do we build on it? Do we tie it into Carnival more? You know, do we entice people to come here for jazz tea over for Carnival?
I would need to hear more. I get the impression that what the chairperson for the board was saying was expressing, was it a wish, an intention, or was it a decision, an announcement of a decision? How
I don't think it was an announcement of a decision.
It's a thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's thinking. And I'm saying that it's all well and good to think and to vision. At the end of the day, the next jazz festival, the planning for it will have had to have started by now, irrespective of election and change of government. So outsourcing of something like the jazz festival, which would be due in less than a year's time, is there enough time to outsource before the next one?
Let me read the paragraph here. It says the former SLTV director said that the board had requested that government make a policy decision on the jazz festival because from about March till June, no marketing activity happens in the marketplace, and as the tourist board's primary role is marketing, it has a significant impact on the ability to generate arrivals for St. Lucia.
March to June. Right. Well, the tourist board was campaigning.
Because as it goes on to say at the end, was
the tourist board sleeping during March and June?
He says it will take on we'll take on board all of the issues so that marketing and the product side of tourism has a home, and so they coexist, and we see the benefits of all the marketing activities that are done. Because
I just hope that this
it takes too much effort.
I think we would all hope that this is not just another consequence of regime change. New government, new approach. There are things you do and things you don't. Up to yesterday, a strong Labour Party supporter who had a senior position in the in a senior government job was marched out of his office effectively on a Friday afternoon. And in as much as there was a lot of hullabaloo about it, it is the sort of thing you expect after regime change, that persons considered to be political appointees will be terminated. But then there are things that is not applied to. And I do not think that the jazz festival is the sort of event that should be lent or should be seen in a way where its future is being considered as a consequence of regime change rather than as a necessity for survival.
I'm not getting that impression at all. What I'm getting is that we have not seen the kind of numbers, not because the jazz festival isn't working, but because, as is suggested in the article, it is too time consuming. It takes too much money to plan, it takes too much staff, so that other aspects of the board's duties and responsibilities are suffering.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said carnival. The jazz festival, jazz and arts. The festival has moved from jazz festival to jazz and arts, and it's gotten too big to be handled by the board because, as the lady is arguing, between March and June there was no promotion done, which is normal. I would like to know why that wasn't done this year when it was being done all the time. You know, I would like to hear from the board as to why, because what we're hearing from is a director who was not there in the 5 years previously, and therefore that is a director, who was there previously, but who is the new chairperson. So you're hearing policy intentions, expressions of intentions, and I'm saying that that is all well and good. I would like to know that it is all aimed at keeping the festival and making it better, making it serve its purpose, rather than simply an economic factor in a regime change situation.
Yeah, I got you. With you for a break, we'll take it when we come back. We'll look at some of the other stories and issues in the news this week. Welcome back. This is a show where we review the big stories making news every week, and of course, as I say at the beginning, we discuss issues affecting the media as well. This is an issue that we've touched on a couple times before, but the Media Association of St. Lucia, perhaps they've watched the program and they've listened to your suggestions, together with the Caribbean Media Association, plan to host a forum on the issue of media self-regulation, as opposed to self-censorship. I know you have your position on that, but I think there's a difference between self-censorship and self-regulation, you know, and I think the issue is regulation. Do we want to go that route? Do we need to go to that route? Are there advantages to regulating yourself as opposed to waiting for the government to impose regulations on you? And are we heading in that direction?
Sounds to me, how do you see it? A thin line? How thin is the line, or is it a gray area? I mean, self-regulation and self-censorship, it seems to me that these are as close as tax evasion and tax avoidance. One is legal and one is not. You know, tax avoidance vis-a-vis tax evasion. Tax evasion is illegal, but tax avoidance is not. I don't see self-regulation as an answer to self-censorship or as a counter to self-censorship. Kendall, you can either write or you can write. You know, I have heard complaints here, particularly during election campaigns, including the last one where journalists would go on air and say, listen, every time I go to write, I can imagine Kenny Anthony and Claudius Francis standing behind me. You know, I feel censored. Others saying, listen, they have to be careful what they write because in this charged political atmosphere, they don't know who's going to come after them. I saw one guy who hardly wrote about politics during the campaign, immediately after the campaign, was able to have an article with 10 reasons why Kenny Anthony lost. I think that I still hold that self-censorship and self-regulation, neither of these are necessary. If you can write, if you, excuse me, if you believe in what you're doing, if you know what you're saying is the truth. The thing about communication, whether writing, speaking, or whatever other ways we communicate, the important thing is getting your message across.
Yeah, you see, but you bring it down to the individual level, but we're looking at self-regulation across the board, the media generally, and I think the issue for Marcel and for me is accountability, the establishment and setting of standards by which all media persons are expected to adhere and to operate.
Who does it? Who's going to do it?
Well, I guess that is what is going to come out of the forum.
Yeah, because
whether it is Marcel that does it, or Marcel leads the way in the formation of a third entity or second entity, whether it is composed of media persons as well as public members from the public who are going to set, guidelines that all media persons are going to be expected to subscribe to and adhere to, so that there is that level of accountability, that level of professionalism.
I'm hoping it doesn't turn out to be another revolving door of uncertainty. But the norm, historically, in all of my 40 years doing journalism in the region, is that these issues keep coming and going as a result of incidents that would happen in one country or the other. So the issue of self-censorship versus self-regulation is coming to St. Lucia, probably having been somewhere else. I don't know if it's a regional move or whether it was something requested by St. Lucia. All of these discussions are good, and hats off to the MASL, because I normally shake my hat at them. But it's a good initiative. At the end of the day, what will count is what comes out of it. What normally comes out of these sort of discussions, and I hope we don't end up doing that, is that the journalists would take a position that is favorable to and in defense of the journalists. The publishers and broadcasters and the media owners, on the other hand, will always want to have that right to decide what goes in or out of the media houses. So the whole question of the ability of the media owner to censor the journalists is something that they do not part with, because you will have a story that you know is true, that is going to really tell the truth, but your media owner doesn't want it in. And it not only happens here, it takes you to an issue we talked about earlier, and it's all over the media as we speak, Facebook and censorship.
Yeah, but you see, I guess the line is thin.
It's thin.
For
it's
you,
still thin, yeah.
because you use it. You seem to be using the word censorship and regulation interchangeably, but I think there's a very big difference between the two.
Define. I'm telling you the
okay, I'm
difference.
thinking of regulation in terms of, as I said, standards. All right, of professionalism.
You see, now you're putting standards and regulation interchangeably.
No.
You see, regulation, I take my response to my reaction to regulation historically is rules that will tell us how to do our work. And invariably, those rules that the journalism I grew up in, those rules were written by lawyers and passed by governments to guide how we
here you go
how
lawyers,
we work.
Lawyers and doctors have codes that they expected to abide by, and you talk about what could have motivated this. I mean, listen to the talk shows. People complain on a daily basis about the quality of media practitioners, the quality of journalists, the quality of reporters. All right, if we are to be and we are here to serve these people, and if they are not happy, what do you do?
You don't self-regulate. You don't self-regulate. Like I said, all of these...
So what do you do?
You either have to decide that I'm going to be a journalist who's going to give the people what they want. Rural. If it's rural they want, let's give them the rural.
But isn't that the idea? That we set the standards by which all journalists, a code of ethics that you're supposed to abide by.
It's not going to work, and because you're always going to have a Rick Wayne who doesn't want to be guided by any code of ethics written by people who we don't consider to be ethical. You'll always have young persons who feel, listen, I have to go against the grain. If the law says, let's go this way, let's find a way to go around it. You know, that because that's going to make our story sell. The soup You know, I'm excited about it because I don't know any of the
Apparently.
persons. Yeah, I don't know any of the persons. I don't know their names. I've never seen them. Maybe I do. But I don't know who they are. Their names haven't been disclosed. I see the pictures here. But it's something new that is coming. Now, are you going to throw a book of rules at those 4 young ladies and say to them, hello, in all you do, try not to do? Because there's a very interesting story in the Star as well today about the
GBTI.
BTI. And there again, when you talk about standards, censorship, regulation, and what they are basically saying, listen, we as journalists have to step up to the plate in our coverage of LGBTI issues. Now,
What does that mean by stepping up to the plate?
well, what they are
Giving
saying
them more
here,
exposure?
what they are saying is that we have to be more LGBTI sensitive in our coverage, and therefore we must not use terms, the regular terms that people use to describe LGBT people. We must not use the negative terms. And there are some things they are saying here. To understand the difference is important when reporting on issues affecting the minority groups. Transgender identifiers was another section which the workshop looked at. But what they are telling you is that although same-sex marriage and sodomy are illegal in St. Lucia, the journalists explained that reporting on the antiquated law would nevertheless require some level of journalistic integrity. Several words and terminologies, often used in a colloquial sense, he noted, might not have a place in media. And for example, he says, instead of saying sodomy or buggery, use the term same-sex intimacy. Goes on to give another lesson, that the same words are some words are offensive to the LGBTI community, among them shemale, dyke, and tranny. I don't hear those. These are not terms that I hear. These are not the terms I hear being used to describe members of the LGBTI community. Now, are the American journalists supported by the U.S. Embassy and the others, are they saying to us that there's something wrong with us, we're not at the stage yet, we have to step up to the plate to be not neutral in our coverage, but to be more pro and more understanding of and sensitive to the LGBTI community? Now, are we at that stage? Is the society at that stage? Who has the role to do that? Is it the media? Is that the main issue that we should be focusing on? These are the issues, and I think that I don't want us to have over expectations coming from the workshop. You know, I think the workshop needs to, like that one, put the issues on the table, clarify self-censorship and self-regulation, its relationship to standards. I think that's what the workshop should be, to bring us to a better understanding of it. But I don't think it can or even should try to come out with a set of standard rules that is going to guide how we work, because we don't work the same. And at the end of the day, the original question you asked, who is going to be the judge? Who is going to be implementing? Are we going to be implementing it on ourselves? Will we agree to be judged by our peers? Will we accept the judgment of an institution established by the government to monitor us? I think if we go along that line, we'll end up with more disagreement than understanding of the issues that face us.
Okay. We're due for a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation on censorship, but this time take a different angle.
No problem.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Before we end, we were talking about censorship before the last break. There's an interesting story that's developed regarding Facebook, revolving around Facebook, where a photograph, a very, very famous, iconic photograph that actually won a Pulitzer Prize, what has been titled informally the Napalm Girl, back in June, July 1972, when the South Vietnamese forces dropped a bomb on a village, and accidentally, because they thought they were bombing the enemy fighters, it turned out to be a group of villagers, and the picture is of some children along with some reporters running away from the bombing, and a little girl who had shed her clothes as a result of being burnt badly by the napalm. And that decision was taken by Facebook because there was a disagreement between whether
she was naked.
Well, she's naked.
She's naked, yeah.
Whether it's child
Nudism,
porn, or journalistic photography. It was taken down. That sparked a shitstorm on the social media. Got some influential people involved, including a couple of presidents who wrote to Facebook, posted on Facebook, had their comments and reaction to Facebook's decision deleted. One president also posted the picture again, had it deleted again. Since then, Facebook has backtracked, but it has brought up the issue of censorship. Has Facebook become such a powerful media entity without having any journalistic experience or expertise within the organization that it can make those decisions? Yeah,
the buck normally stops with the leader, and therefore even the Guardian I was reading this morning refers to him as the world's most powerful editor.
Zuckerberg.
Now you and I, Zuckerberg, you and I would have reason to believe that he probably didn't even have anything to do with the decision. It could very well be, as the Norwegian journalists who kicked up the storm for the first time, it might very well be one of these non-journalistic, formal people who have the power to do and say and to run with that huge behemoth of an information
Because the
machine.
question was asked this week as well, I'm not sure if Facebook has responded to it, whether it is actually somebody sitting, as you're suggesting, monitoring, or is it a set of codes and algorithms that automatically detects?
Whatever it is, you have a Facebook account, you place something on your Facebook account, and then Mr. Facebook decides, your picture is not worth sharing. That particular photo, as you correctly pointed out, it won a Pulitzer Prize. It influenced how people saw the war. The woman is 53 years old today, my God, in Canada with 2 children who are Zuckerberg's age right now. And to suggest today is that you have to distinguish between whether it is nudism and child pornography or a picture, the iconic picture that it was.
Especially when there are far more offensive content on Facebook that's not being deleted.
That's not being deleted. In fact, a guy posted on his Facebook account a string of what he called male hookers. With just an underwear on them and going around. So people started to post things to test Facebook to see if that is what it, and fortunately they have backed down and they have accepted that they were forced into backtracking, because what they had done was to look at the same photograph and not be able to distinguish whether it was porn or whether it was what it really is, an iconic photograph that
Yeah, but what is pornographic about a little girl running on fire, screaming, because
that's why I believe it's one of these little guys in a hurry to go home. Who wants to earn his money, he or her. And I think it's, like I said, I don't think it was meant to be policy. If it was meant to be that policy, I don't think anybody could have forced Facebook to change its mind. But given the shitstorm that came back and has been coming back from it, I mean, even Facebook has to listen. You know, there was another interesting one where in Ireland, there's a program where a newspaper gives a citizen to be able to tweet for one day about why they love Ireland. And there's this black English woman born in England, living in Ireland with her children for several years, and it happened that she had the job, or she was chosen to tweet what she likes about Ireland. And during that 24-hour period, she got so many racist remarks. She was told to go back to Africa. Pointed out that she was born in England. They accused her of coming to Ireland to marry a white man when she pointed out that she's gay. You know, living with another woman and raising their children, and that she had been in Ireland for years, and she's an Irish citizen. In the end, she had to give up because in the name of freedom, the people were able to tell her, hey, you're black and you don't have a place here. You know, and it was seen as, you know, the exercise of the right of the Irish people to tell her that she has no place there. Those sort of things tend to bring a negative edge, I wouldn't say a negative edge, that's the wrong word. It brings negative imputations to what the new media is supposed to be. Rights and freedoms, we have always held, come with responsibilities. And that has never changed. And so the more sophisticated the technology gets, is the more sophisticated our responsibilities will get. But at the end of the day, who decides what is responsible? Because the person who wants to be different will say, I didn't want to be irresponsible, I just wanted to be different. And that brings an argument as to how do you define responsibility. So again, I'm saying, like the guy says about us better understanding the terms in the LGBTI community, and the fact that while it is a community, it has different inbuilt sectors within it. We as media persons, media practitioners, generally in St. Lucia, are still at that stage where we need to do all we can to better understand our work, to better understand the factors that drive how we go about doing our work. And if we spend as much time as we should being better at what we do, then it will be easier for us to understand and adapt to the new elements that would be flowing into us. Yesterday I heard about the iPhone 7 being launched without a headphone. I wasn't sure how you could have a headphone without a headphone, you know, and I had to seek advice from a little one who was able to explain to me, no, they didn't do away with the headphone, it was just the cord, you know, and the Bluetooth and the connection and so on. My teeth are still white, so I guess I won't get into the Bluetooth age.
Mr. Bousquet, you're out of time. Thank you for being here. As usual, thank you for viewing. Hopefully you will be back here. We will be back here next week, and you'll join us as well for another program. This has been the Press Club. On behalf of my co-host, Mr. Earl Bousquet, do have yourselves an enjoyable and safe weekend.